Okay, this is going to be another episode of the Best Damn League show, period, if you still call it that. As I pointed out, that was an American thing that held over from having Dom, etc. But that's long gone now. Now we're in the era of the version that's like the snake and banter format where we do it as good, bad and ugly points. And obviously I won't make that, listen, that joke's too hackneyed every week to do like, here are the good, the bad and the ugly. Yeah, you all get that one. We all know that's too obvious. We're not going to do the pantomime level thing. But we are going to have obviously guests on this show every week now. And for this one, in case you're wondering what we're going to talk about, because obviously there hasn't been any games yet, and we're not going to address like first stand, except maybe tangentially, is I thought we could also do an episode where it's like we set up the narratives that might happen in the split, or we like carry over narratives from before. It's almost like a semi-preview type episode. And it's just fun to do talk shows, isn't it? Like obviously the guest isn't on every week. I will just say at the outset, one, obviously, it even says on his box down there, doesn't it? This is Freeze. That guy used to be like the top 80 carry in Europe. He played for NIP and H2K and all those other teams back in the day. And then he went, I mean, maybe we'll get to this in the episode. Then he went down to the ERLs, which you all told him you really care about and you want to grow the regional scene. Was just like the finals MVP. By the way, I always say this, did actually like a game-winning play in one of the like LVP finals. That's one of the most insane players probably ever in Western League of Legends. None of you watched it. And even though he was actually the finals MVP, because at the time, even though now you all pretend to really love ERLs, no one cared, and he didn't even get any offers to come to like the LEC again, even though as far as I can tell, like in that logic, it's like he aced out the test at the low level, and then everyone's just like, yeah, who cares anyway? So anyway, he's here now, isn't he? So if you don't know, he currently does core streaming of LEC in Czech, random detail just to get bonus points. He is from the country Czechia or whatever, like however I'm supposed to say it, because he's changed names officially, guys. I'm just trying to get on side with everyone here, and I'll just throw a thing out there randomly as well, which is just a really awkward thing, which is obviously you might even, if you hadn't checked the box, have thought, oh, is that Nightshare from Fanatics, as he was coaching for that the last few years, because he has an identical twin brother, which used to just be a piece of trivia, but now you're both actually famous people in esports. And I was saying before the show, there was actually a really awkward situation, which is because for Peter's lifestyle, that's where I say that like he's a rock star, we have to film at a very specific time and a very specific date. It's not like, if you don't know, the reason I get everyone is I just basically fit to whatever they want. Like, as long as I'm not totally booked up, I'll just find a way to be on at a certain hour, a certain day, and just make it work for the guests. So it just so happened that when it was coming down to the wire to get the guest, I was messaging all these people. For some bizarre reason, the only two people who were actually like almost confirmed was Freeze and his twin brother. And then it got really awkward because then they both somehow, this is how you know they're also twins and brothers. They both will send one message and then they just like disappear from reality for like 12 hours, and then they reply. Even if, by the way, you instantly reply to their message, they just like, they're the ultimate like left on red guys, I guess, in esports at this point in time. So unfortunately, the awkward thing was, I think his brother said yes first, but then didn't confirm the time. Then he came in like, yeah, sure, but then he like suggested himself a time, like, yeah, what about like, I won't say the time, what about this time? So as a result, I had him like sort of an 80% confirmed. So the worst thing is then I had to message his brother and be like, look, this is awkward because he might tell you this, but like, I've actually booked someone else and it's your brother. And it's not because I'm implying you're just the same person, and if one's not available, I can just replace you with the other. That looks really awkward, but that's not at all it. It's actually because one of you was a top player and one of you was a top coach. That's just, listen, it's not my fault. It's not my fault that you both go to esports. So anyway, welcome, Freeze. We're obviously, after all that said, we're really glad to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me then. What an intro.
Exactly. Yeah. Right, so here's the thing. Go on.
Just the thing while we're here I was actually coaching that team.
Right. Was it Heretics? Was it Heretics? What was it? What was the team called at the time?
Splice Vipers. It's Splice Vipers versus
Splice.
Game 5, if you haven't seen that play, I've coached for 10 years. I have never seen a better clutch. Like, the end of Game 5, it is literally one of the best plays you will go and see. Go and watch it now. Just go.
Essentially, the gist of it is they're like about to take his base or something, and he does, isn't it? And he just does like a 1v4 or something.
We get almost aced. I'm the only one alive. I somehow start like split pushing. I bait someone from the enemy team to TP and defend. I recall. When I recall, I kill people or like two people trying to finish the game, and then my team respawns and we kill them all and we finish the game. So it's basically like, at one point you think it's lost, and then 5 seconds to 10 seconds later you're like, oh, it's won.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure I'm not trolling. It's way better than that expected backdoor play back. It's just that was more famous. It was like an IM and it was massive. Like, it's actually unironic. I'll tell if the video editor watches this, just do that thing where you put like a YouTube card when we talk about it so they can click on the video. Because it actually is unironically a banger clip. Like, I'm not just saying that like glazed against it. Actually is an insane. That's why I say, mate, maybe we'll get to it later. Like, it is that when people talk about this thing now where like Los Ratones wins EMEA, when they're like, they should be in LEC. I'm like, are you fucking that's the way we're doing this now. That's the way. That's the new rules. Okay, then whatever. You fucking...
Yeah, I kind of knew at the point where we won that it's not gonna ever happen again, or something like that. You know, it's like this is one in like a career opportunity or like a clip or like a thing that happened, and it was crazy. I remember Peter was jumping like crazy on the stage. He like came to the stage and just started jumping, or backstage maybe. Yeah, backstage he was backstage.
In like game 5 of a finals in front of a live audience, like.
Oh, that was crazy.
Yeah,
it was a very good experience. Very, very nice memories. Yeah.
Right. We always have the guest freeze start. So what is your good point? What do you like it at the moment?
I think it's gonna be a very obvious one, but co-streaming and Fearless format. I think Fearless format has been a huge success. Not many people expected it to the point where everyone loves it. It's very entertaining. It just basically people were bored of seeing every champions the same way all the time, and now you get every champion, or like every game its different champions, and it's super fun.
Okay.
I am a big advocate that it should be for the rest of the season or the rest of the year. It should be all Fearless, because it for me it just engages the viewership and audience in a way that has never happened before. And then co-streaming, finally for LEC, there's been co-streams allowed, where other regions like LCK, LPL, even North America had co-streaming. And I feel like co-streaming has increased viewership in LEC dramatically because of the big streamers.
Yeah.
You know, you have Ibai, you have K-Drill, you have Kamito. They all started co-streaming, and then in theory, it like grew a lot of players or that didn't play the league and didn't watch league to watch it again. So I didn't see the stats or anything, and just like that's my idea and how I interpret the co-streaming. But it's been a huge success for me.
By the way,
for like the
one
viewership.
quick question I have to ask you is, bro, you were an ADC player. How dare you as an ADC player be like, it's brilliant this format where you have to play all the champions. Like, the ADC players at any one point in time play like 3 champions. Like, come on,
Dude,
mate. Well, you're cool with it now, you're not playing.
Hey, you're not like, remember, like, you're forgetting the fact that it's been a long time since I spoke in English. So it's
all good. You sound great.
My very first 2 years in LEC, or back then EU LCS, were in Copenhagen Wolves, and I was getting permabanned. There were like 3 champions banned every single draft against me. So I had to play more champions than 3, you know? But I hated playing 2 same champions all the time.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's just like, it was the most boring thing as an AD carry, where like, you had to play Varus or Jhin, and that was it. Nothing else, you know? Or like Corki and Ezreal, nothing else. It's just so boring. It's all the time the same, nothing.
I guess
changed,
you were one of the infamous Draven players too. So I guess you did have some pocket picks. Okay, true.
Yep.
The role is pretty famous though for being people just want to play 3 champions. So like, give me the OP.
Yeah.
Let me smash the lane. Okay. What do you think on his points then, Peter?
Yeah, no, I agree. Co-streaming has been a great success. It's really fun to watch. What I will say though, for Fearless, so I spent a long time thinking about Fearless because basically I kind of hate how Riot implemented it, right? Like they said at the start of the year, we're just doing Fearless for the first split. Everyone built their rosters with this in mind, like thinking first stand doesn't matter. So my initial thought was, I'm going to really hate Riot for it. Like, sure, it's entertaining for the fans, but competitive integrity is just garbage. But then I thought about it some more, and actually, I don't hate Fearless anymore. For the rest of the year, for the rest of this year. Like next year is whatever, right? In the future, it doesn't matter. It's just for this year because teams have built their rosters. But the problem is that Riot, the way Riot are balancing the game and the way that they've balanced it over the past 5-6 years hasn't been great, right? Like there have been tournaments that have been ruined because like some OP champion, because Riot are trying to balance the game for competitive, for like challenger players, for like platinum players and for like bronze players, right? And like from a game design perspective, it's basically just impossible to do, right? This is, you're always going to fuck up somewhere, and Fearless gives them the safety net to fuck up. Like, you're never going to get a world that is ruined by Mordekaiser GP like 2015. You're never going to, like, they can afford to take risks on patches. And I think now what this means is, as long as they don't fuck up items, which is like not impossible, you can always fuck up like items that make one subclass like super, super, super OP. I think it's gonna be fine. But I actually like it simply because it protects from the potential incompetence of people doing a very, very hard job for balance for future tournaments. So I like it from that perspective, right? Even though I don't like how it's been implemented.
Okay.
One interesting thing is, when I was co-streaming First Stand, it's maybe the usage of more roster players comes back in play. Because
that could be.
Flying Oysters had 2 top laners, and they had like 2 different play styles.
Classic.
And then you're playing Fearless, and then 2 games you're playing versus a tank top laner, and then third and fourth game you're playing versus a carry top laner. And that's just, this guy is out banned, Fearless, because there's like 2 or 3 tanks are banned, and just plug in the other guy. And then suddenly you have like a completely new top laner that's best at the champions that were not played ever. And then the champions that counter this guy is already like out, So it's just like, there's going to be interesting dynamic to see if teams will pick up more players, or if they will try to pick up more players for Fearless, because I think that's a real thing that can happen.
Sure.
Fully agree. Mage AD carry players especially. Like, they're about 2 to 3 AD carries short from my side for best of 5 to be 100% safe. Like, if you're going down to Twitch, well, I mean, Twitch wasn't too bad last split, but if you're going down to like Vayne or things like this, it's a little bit dangerous right now.
Well, it's for AD, it's a very good idea, right? Because there's very little AD carries who can play mages, and mages are, in my opinion, very OP. Like if you play versus a Heve on bot lane, there's nothing you can do. The guy shoves you in all the time, has perma prio, spikes super hard early. So there's a lot of nuance to like having a mage AD carry that will just plug in when the AD carries are gone.
Sure.
And
By the way,
play style.
As someone who, at least in Counter-Strike, has done a lot of broadcast work, and I would say from League, I have an idea of what fans are interested in, what discussions they like. The reason why, to me, core streaming is a no-brainer is the only downside, basically, is like the actual person who has to book like sponsors on the main Riot broadcast. He's going to get less eyeballs, and also if you want to control the broadcast, there's that. But if you want like more viewership, I think it's a slam dunk. Like, first of all, you're just going to get more viewers because some of these giant core streamers and influencers already have a huge audience. So like, it's not like some of them wouldn't watch, but more of them will watch if that person's on. So to me, it's just different flavors. Like maybe someone does want a regional broadcast, or they want like a less serious one, or one with like banter elements. I actually like, the key thing for me is this: core streaming is really good until Riot does something silly like get rid of the main broadcast. If they ever do that, I'll be really sad. But as long as they have both, it's just an option in it, so it's fine. I will say though, on the Fearless one, this is why this show's interesting, because people can have different perspectives as well. I'm doing that disclaimer there. Spoiler, I disagree, because I'm not a fan freeze, because one of the things I really did love about League of Legends was seeing people like play both sides of a matchup, or when you actually could see in a series, oh, the other guy can't play the other side of the matchup, and it was just obvious from like the way the series went and the way the bands went and the draft. So I used to love that. Also, by the way, I actually have, because people emphasize draft so much, I actually thought it made it cooler when, for example, you can just look at Last Worlds, someone like Bin would be like, you know what, I'm not only picking Jax, I'm just going to blind pick it. Pick anything you want, mate. You just can't fuck with me on this champion. Or Uzi I back in the day on his picks. I used to think that was dope when people could do that. So there are some things we lose without having the normal drafting, you know. And I'll just say this, though. Here's how I'll resolve it, which is, one thing that's hard to argue against is it's obviously novel, isn't it? We've never seen this format before in like the big leagues. We've just had it for one split and one tournament. So at the moment, what people are enjoying is what's fresh about it, what's different. So I'll give you a quick analogy. I realise this analogy does show I am a boomer, because in the modern day, this analogy probably sounds horrifying. But actually, Peter will know. It might maybe even phrase, you've heard this concept. It's actually something back in the day. It's a famous story that's happened in almost every like country and region of the world. It goes like this. Back in the day, the joke goes, because everyone used to, in our days, kids, be really, really, really against smoking. Like that was the number one thing. Like, don't smoke, you'll get cancer from it, you know. What would happen was, if you get caught, you probably know this story where I'm going, if you get caught with a cigarette when you're a kid, there's a famous like meme thing that your dad or your granddad does, which is they don't go, hey, Stop smoking. What they do is they go, oh, you like to smoke, do you? You're going to smoke that entire pack now. Smoke all 12 or all 20. And the idea is, what they're actually cheating and doing is, if you haven't smoked before, it takes a while to get accustomed to it. So you're going to feel really sick if you smoke like 20 cigarettes and you're a kid or whatever. So what they're trying to do is, they think if you smoke all 20, you'll feel so sick, your brain will make a negative association and go, oh, fuck, I'm not going to smoke again. It's horrible, isn't it? So what I'm going to do is this, Freeze. I'm cool. You guys want the rest of the year to be fearless. Go ahead and do it. Smoke the whole fucking pack. Because at the moment now you're loving it. I got a little something off that. I'm cool because I'm doing this. Oh yeah. Tell you what, let's see at the end of the year when you smoke the whole pack and you're all sick as fuck of it, and you're all sick of seeing someone in game 5 just like, well, time to get the fucking crank 775. Oh, I didn't get the jackpot. Oh, fuck. Well, we lose again. Wait until people have lost 1 million game 5s and they've done it, and you've tried every coach just tearing his hair out. Please, I've tried 17 different comps in the scrims. None of them ever come through the game. Wait until that's happened. Wait until pro players, by the way, get sick of. Because, by the way, in the early days, there's even actually, if you think logically, the bottom half pros in every league should be loving Fearless, because it also covers when you're not that good on some of the champions, because no one's going to be good on all of them at the beginning. But at the end of the year, when some of you were just like, now I'm just getting exposed on like 5 champions instead of 2. Like, I think eventually we'll see. This discussion will happen again. We'll have a referendum on this at the end of the year and see if it actually was the right move for Fearless. But for now, smoke the whole pack, guys, because I want to see at the end if you agree with me it's good or not. But listen, I'm also willing to give it a try. We'll see. I actually do think as well, the real problem is you can't really know after first stand if it's any good, because that format was almost like old MSI. If you have the real MSI with the double elim and the BO5s, we'll know after that if it's actually a good format. If after that it's dope, then fair enough, I'll give it up. I can change my opinion on certain stuff.
Yeah, it's true. The first stand format was the old MSI garbage, yeah.
It was. It actually really reminded me even of that, because I was just watching, like, what's the point in this? Like, I'm basically just waiting for LPL to play LCK again in one match. Like, why have we gone back in time? But anyway, let's go on. So it's time now for what I call the largest segment of the show, Peter Dun's good point. So what is it, Peter?
Okay, so I'm gonna go best of 3s. So best of 3s. Firstly, obviously, good change. I personally prefer best of 2s, but best of 3s better than best of 1s.
Of course.
But the reason I'm excited for best of 3s is not because of K-Corp G2.
Okay.
It's not because of like I can't remember all the games of the first weekend. Yeah. But the reason I'm excited for best of 3s is because we don't have to watch a best of 1 for Vitality versus Giant X. I get to watch a best of 3 starting the season, Vitality versus Giant X. I get to go and see how Niski is doing in the best of 3. I don't have to have the narrative set for best of 1. I get to see how Isma is doing on Giant X. I don't have to deal with all of these people being massively overreacting to a single best of 1. Hopefully, I'm going to get a proper best of 3. And I'm mega excited for Vitality versus Giants, and not for G2, not for Fnatic, not for K-Corp. I'll probably enjoy them in future weeks, but that's the one that I'm looking for, because I cannot wait to see how Niski's going to do. And obviously, I've been a bit of a hater for Isma, so we'll go and see how he does in a new team environment, which actually on Giants is the perfect setup for him, right? Because when he's playing with Rika's a bit more of a supportive guy. He likes to roam for his jungler, and now he's playing with Jackies. And this is the fit that, if you were saying to me, which team should Isma join when he goes and joins LEC? This is like XL or Giant X would have been the team that I would have said, and definitely not SK with Niski. And they've tried to make it work with Niski, and then they tried to make it work with Rika, and now he should be in an environment which is better for him. Obviously, the situation with what happened, going to K-Corp, like K-Corp made bank of that, right? But that's what I'm excited for, and we'll go and see how it is at the start of the year.
Okay. You didn't expect that as a good point, did you? He actually wants to see Vitality against GX in the best of 3. What do you think of this? It's mainly more about best of 3s coming back, Freeze. What do you think about this point?
I like best of 3s. They're very fun to watch, but one thing I'm scared of is basically, for me as a player, and for me as I've been in esports for such a long time. I enjoyed watching BO3s, and I don't mind watching like a lot of League. But I'm not sure about the viewers. Like the normal audience, the Western audience feels like if they watch more like BO3s, the viewership usually drops, because they've tried BO3s before and it didn't work. But again, then at some point, I again feel like maybe the audience is ready for the BO3s nowadays, and they're ready to watch. It all depends on how many games are in each day. And if there are like 2 best of 3s, then it's manageable. If there are 3 best of 3s, then it's too much. Anyway, so I think I checked the schedule, and it was 3 best of 3s the first day tomorrow, which might be a little too much, but we'll see.
I mean, it could be 9 games, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could.
I mean, basically, LEC is starting on. So I think it's 3 best of 3s on Saturday, and then 2 on Sunday and 2 on Monday. But now we have LEC starting at 2:00 on a Saturday, which
right.
in theory is good. But I will tell you that if you are playing last on Sunday and first on Saturday, that's going to be difficult. But we'll see. I haven't watched EU games at 2:00, so we'll see how that's going to function.
Sure.
So.
Mm-hmm. Yes, especially because I will say also some players wake up at like 12 or something, so they have to wake up earlier. They better get that fixed.
Yeah.
Is the Fearless format for the best of 3s too, or is it?
As far as I know, it's for everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's confirmed. Okay.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's for every region and everything at this point in time in it. So yeah. By the way, first of all, I'll do it in reverse order. The joke there being, I actually want to know how long it's going to take before people like get a read on Peter and what his angles are. Because for all my other shows, people do get that. Like people can even now guess from the title and what the headline is, like whose point was what, etc. You know. So one of the things I want to know is like if people actually don't realise that Peter Dun actually is on some like subverting your expectations type shit, because everyone else, but I guess it's built into your point, Peter. Everyone else would be like looking at the schedule, like, oh yeah, we got like what, G2 against them? Like they're looking and going, oh, Vitality plays GX. Well, maybe I'll skip that one and come back later. You actually want to see a best of 3 between these 2 teams, but I guess as you say, it's built into it, which is if they had a BO1. No matter which team, by the way, loses, it's either like Isma was a shit move, you shouldn't have done that one, what are they doing, should have kept closer, or it's like Nizki, what the fuck, what are you doing, should have kept Hillary. I guess you're right, you can't win on that when you actually need to sort of like give people like a sample size and see them play over a bunch of different games and a bunch of different champion picks. Also, I get what you mean, you'll just get a way better sense of who's actually integrated and how they're going to be in the split as opposed to in a BO1. It's hard not to overreact anyway because there's only one game to watch. You can't know what would have happened. You can't do the counterfactual, can you? So I actually do agree with it. I actually think in general, best of 3s are good. Like the problem last split was, obviously, BO1 isn't fearless, is it? Because there's no fearless component yet. Like, you're just picking whatever you want. Like, so the problem was, I thought it was silly that we had BO1s in that sense. I know what freeze means. Like, put it this way. This is what people refuse to articulate when it comes to scheduling, right? Obviously, like I just joked there, if people don't give a fuck, look, Vitality's actually all right, but let's say it'd be like Heretics against SK or something like that. If that match happens, yes, some people are going to tune out of the broadcast because they not only don't care, but they don't care to watch 3 games of that. But it does mean, in theory, when Fnatic plays G2, they're going to tune in and stay even more. So you're just going to have ups and downs in the broadcast. Whereas before, the way they treated the LEC broadcast forever was because it was BO1s. It was like you watch the whole day, don't you? You're supposed to watch from game 1 to the end. So all I'll say is this is a chance if the viewership keeps going up and the core stream, we can tie this to the other point. If core stream is a success and this works, this could actually be one day where, especially like you said about the format, where now we only have a few matches each day, not like 5 different teams playing. This is actually moving towards real sports, where real sports aren't about you sit and watch. I always tell people, I don't know a single sport except UFC that you sit and you watch the entire day's like matches. You watch the match you care about watching. The whole point is I watch like Liverpool play or Real Madrid or so. I don't have to then watch like Deportivo La Coruña play someone after and then go, bloody hell, I can't wait for the game after. Like, that's not a thing in sports. So we could also potentially, as a result of this, if you keep pivoting, move towards like a real format where my dream would just be that it was like you have it throughout the week as well. You know, you do the same thing. You pick the 2 days. You have a Wednesday game. You have a Friday game. You know, you do it like that and then you space it out. And if you're really clever, by the way, really clever Riot, you could just then do things like, say there's a 1 Friday night match. That's where you put the G2 Fnatic banger, you know, so everyone can like get the popcorn ready and tune in and everyone watches that at prime time on 9 p.m. CET or whatever. So anyway, I agree. I think that's a pretty good point. I think it's a pretty good one. I will say though, like, I agree with Freeze though. Expect there to be some ups and downs in the viewership though. Like obviously, like I joke about, if someone like Heretics plays SK, you might have a very low viewership for that one, or that might just seem like no one cares. By the way though, you could technically say that's why co-streaming also helps though, because one thing I did in my career, if you've ever seen in Counter-Strike, is I didn't just do banter all the time and do stupid jokes. What I would intentionally do is, my logic goes, if the game was shit, that means the game's not entertaining. It's not going to be that entertaining on a desk. So that's when you go crazy with like a joke or you do a skit or something. So if you're a co-streamer, you'll be able to have a lot of fun with like the bad games. You'll be able to do all memes and all sorts of shit. That'll keep people entertained. What are you going to say, Peter? Come on.
Pitch me this, Reese, right? Because the second game, the second best of 3 we're going to see is not Heretics versus SK, it's Heretics versus Rogue, right?
My lord.
So as a coach, what's your pitch?
Yeah. Oh, no, they have done a sandwich there, haven't they? They've done Fnatic GX, and then after, at the end, you get the G2 versus Koi dessert. But yeah, the middle one is Heretics versus Rogue.
Yeah, the middle one, I don't know yet. I have to think about it. What's my pitch there?
True.
But I might pull out Thorin, just make fun of him when they like do bad things. And I'll just make fun of him or memes. Yeah, that seems to be the play.
All I'll say is this. People maybe know this vaguely because they've heard it alluded to in interviews. But right now, the person in all of LEC who should be the most happy this isn't football, where you can literally look up how much salary someone makes. And in football, they even do it ridiculously because since they all make millions now, in the UK, they always calculate how much you make per week. Because per week, it'll be like $200,000 or something metal. The person who should be glad that doesn't exist is my boy, mid laner Larson. Because if you don't know, guys, he has an enormous contract. Like, if that was known what that contract about is, he would get hated on so much every time Rogue plays.
Oh, he's already getting hated.
He does it. He does anyway, but it'd be even worse, mate. If people knew the number, it'd be really bad. Put it this way, boys, he's not that far off like the Capsters of the world. So that's all I'll say. It's pretty wild.
His biggest fan did a tweet, like one of like his big fans, like celebrating how he was challenger for the first time.
Oh, I saw that.
Years.
Yes.
Like but it was a fan. It wasn't a hater.
Oh, it was right.
Well, he got a challenger after all this drama on Twitter where, there was like this French fan who made a big tweet about how he is Master Tier 0 LP for the last 4 years.
Since 2021, they said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thing is, though, I do agree with the counterpoint someone said, which is, yeah, but that would only make sense if you want to dunk on him, if he'd been shit since 2021. But 2022 was the year he was in both finals, won the LEC, and went to top 8 at World. So I'm just going to let you know, guys, I agree he should actually play solo queue, but I think it was working out for him that year. That's not the problem, is it? The problem is he's not fucking doing good now. That's my issue. So anyway, whatever. We'll now go to my good point. By the way, Freeze, if you were the old school ADC you used to be 10 years ago, you would also love my good point here, because my good point is I actually am just a boomer on a lot of things. I like the old traditional things that were good. So I'm actually really glad, even though, by the way, when I do these shows, when everyone talked about lane swaps, look, I can appreciate it on like a Monte Cristo, Peter Dun, like this allows extra, bandwidth for the coaches, and they can sort of like design, like, for example, you can do clever level 1s to trick someone on the lane swap, or this is how you can make the draft work so that there's an extra dimension of Yu-Gi-Oh! You activate my trap card. I was going to do a lane swap anyway, so that top laner was never going against your... You can do all that, so that's true. That's got like a sort of intellectual value to me. My problem was, it just did result in a lot of games where it's like, these pros are fucking it up, haven't they? They just fucked up the level 1 there. I can tell they did. They were told to go there and they didn't do it right, so now they're going to be behind for 3 minutes, and now I don't even get to see this top laner play the game, basically. So there were downsides. So essentially, my good point is standard lanes are back. And the best thing is, I just said earlier in drafting, I like to see both sides of the matchup. I also like to see players actually play against each other. Like, if you have Broken Blade and you're telling me he's the best, well, how the fuck am I supposed to know that if all he does is just, like, play graceful losing against a bot lane every fucking game for the first 10 minutes? Like, that, I can't tell who's the best top player there. We all know, even though this is not true, like a noob, I need to see the solo bolo, don't I? I need to see the guy who gets the kill. I need to see the 1v1 and the 2v2. And also, I'll just put this out there, every bloody AD carry I've ever known, just like, how mid laners get a bad rep, like the Froggins and the Larsons of like, I just care about my CS, mate. Bot laners are way worse than that. The AD carries, they don't even do it for the whole game. They'll just be like, at minute 10, I was up 4 on him and I was 1 level and he shouldn't be like that in that matchup. They live for that shit. They love 2v2 lanes. That's what they're all about. So it's back. It's back now, Freeze. Now I get to see, is Kalista the best ADC? Is Upset the best? Come on, what bot's coming?
The thing is, it's back. The lanes are back, but you know what's not back? The domination that you were capable of doing when you were a better player.
Okay.
Like 10 years back, when you were a better player than the opponent you were playing against, no matter what lane, mainly bot lane we're talking now, you could be double CS easily. But these days, you can be double CS because there's so much sustain. The waves are different.
Oh, right.
Champions have different damage. You have less damage as an AD carry, more damage as a support. So you will see difference between a good player and a bad player, but those differences will be just 10 CS,
right,
or 15, which is useless. It's completely like you're like, AC 16 degrees. You're like sweating so hard for 10 minutes to last hit everything, body language, every single CS, and then you press tab and you're 10 CS up, and it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Literally. so that's the problem, But yes, lanes are back, so I agree.
Yeah,
Sure.
the best thing you've done as an AD carry is like win lane so your support can roam 10 seconds earlier
True.
to win,
Yep.
True.
Yeah,
That's
there's
the
little
incredible.
agency for
True
AD
that.
carries nowadays in lane.
Yeah. Well, in a way, I
You're
guess
just farming.
that does synergize with the vitality move then, because it would be a bomber if you Kazi. You just try harder for 10 minutes, then Hillsang does his first roam and just didn't immediately. It's like, what the fuck was this all for? Like, anyway, that's not going to happen, thankfully, because the boy Niski's in. So let's move on. What is the bad point? What we going with, Freeze? What are you not like at the moment?
I feel like this has been touched before, but there is not a really strong personalities in LEC like it used to be. The golden era of League of Legends for me was when Oddsault was streaming, when Frogan was streaming, when Xpeke was streaming, when all these players that were supposed to be the best were also. It's not about streaming, but it's more about like personalities. You know, like when I think about LEC, the only personality that is like a strong personality, I feel like, is BB Broken Blade with his, like his. I don't know how to call it, charisma or like a.
He's got swagger.
Joking,
swagger. Yeah.
So sort of like those, like you could look at Caps, and Caps is like, yeah, sure, he's the best mid laner, but like, what else is there? Like there, that's it. And then you look at Humanoid, it's the same. It's like, well, sure, he's like the top 2 mid laner, but there's not really like a strong personality that you can like attach to as a player or as a viewer, and then just be a big fan of it, as back in the day.
So I kind of agree with your point, but I think that it's a lot of the personality has gone towards the org side, right? So you have Kometo, you have like Ibai, you have whatever G2 are trying to market themselves as these days, a little bit more Mimi. You have Fnatic side. What I think is hard, so I think it's possible, like, to be honest, Jojo trash talks, but the way he trash talks is not like APA trash talk. It's different, right? It's like.
No, but sorry for jumping in, but Jojo is the other person that it's like, I really like Jojo in LEC. That's like every time he's on an interview, I crack on the volume. I just enjoy his banter. I just enjoy his charisma. I enjoy the way he is as a player. It brings, I watch their team to see if Jojo ins or not, because he's just like the way he is, and that's fun for me.
I mean, it's great fun as well, but the thing is that he has essentially the backing of Koi to be able to do it. It's not like he's on SK and trash talking, right? If he's trash talking on Koi, obviously the KC fans are going to go after him, but people will defend him, right? I think the fact that the orgs now matter a lot more than the players for pushing narratives and storyline, I think has a negative impact if you want to be a big personality on a small team. Because now you're not just getting shit on by other players, you're really getting shit on by the fan bases. So like if you want to be the guy that's trash talking on SK, then that's difficult. I mean, Fnatic, not Fnatic, like Flackett is like far too nice to go and do that kind of thing, but he is essentially the face of Heretics, and I think it would be very, very hard, for instance, for him to trash talk Super, right? Like I think it would be very, very difficult as a Heretics player to trash talk Super, and to me that's a shame, because I think we lose a bit of the interest in the lower table teams, and I regret.
I feel like though it doesn't have to be trash talk, It could be, like for example, there's like David Pastrnak in NHL where he like dresses very nicely all the time, or has like super nice stuff for interviews. These things are like everyone from it. It really feels like the LEC players, they're like just like they're in the baseline and they're not trying to get out of the baseline. They're doing nothing to get out of the baseline and nothing to grab attention. Because
I mean, you don't just mean you're sort of also saying branding, right? Like have something to stand out, right?
But it's harder and harder each year to grab attention of people, because the battle for attention is insane. Everyone's dying and doing it. That now you see like clip farmers everywhere and people that doing crazy stuff just to grab attention. We're missing that in LEC. I feel like some of the players could try to do that, and there's not really anyone trying to do it. That's kind of like the thing. It doesn't have to be trash talk. It could be basically anything. Like as long as it is something that is like a very unique to that person.
what was that NA player who was like a big fan of what is it? Oh, it's a trash anime. What was it called? Like Rent a Girlfriend or something?
Oh, okay.
And he did lots of an interview or a couple of interviews talking about how he really likes this. Like it's the most garbage of garbage
Right.
anime. Like one of the worst anime
Right.
you can possibly imagine. Do you mean stuff like this? Like this, please?
Even like it's just something that you remember a player, like a specific player. You know, it could be like a dress style. It could be like the way you talk. It could be charisma. It could be just anything. It's literally anything. Because everyone these days is trying to not get cancelled and not to be like a you know like a that's.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring this up.
No.
I actually think this is a knock-on effect from what Peter's saying, which is now it seems like the personality and who people attach to has switched to like the club, and as a result, like the core streamers is part of that as well. So it's almost more like people like the joke is people do care more about Kometo than like Kalist on some level, which to me is just like I'll never get that. That's so alien to me. The joke is if Kalist leaves Karmine Corp, my interest in Karmine Corp's like halved immediately. It doesn't matter what Kometo says on the mic. So I do think that's part of it. It's almost like you've transferred who is doing that role. But I know what you mean. Like, it doesn't have to actually just be trash talk. That's what people in NA made the mistake of. They thought, like I think actually people like Umti have fucked up in this sense. Mate, that's clearly not your personality. Like, you should have just stuck with being like a fun, bobbly guy where if anything, I don't know, you're silly or something. That's your personality. But instead he thought like, oh, get some fans. What I'll do is go to like Conor McGregor. And it's like, because here's a key point I'm going to make. What you're sort of saying there as well, Peter, is it does, even if you were a good player, by the way, trash talk doesn't really work unless you are likely to win or you can win, because that's what emphasizes the point, right? And makes it and sells it. That's what makes it work to the fan. Like, in fact, Conor McGregor himself is the best example, because Conor McGregor still does the Conor McGregor trash talk, but he hasn't had a fight in about like 5 years, and he like lost his last few as well. So he's not as dangerous anymore. So it doesn't have the same impact anymore. In fact, if anything, now people are like, it backfires on him. People think he's sort of a laughing stock for doing it. So I'm with you though, Freeze. It doesn't have to just be trash talk. You can do the JoJo style. Although I will say the sad thing is, some of the players who actually are quite funny, the problem you have in the LEC is we have a really nerdy crop of top players at the moment. So I'll give you an example. I actually do find Humanoid really funny in interviews, but his sense of humor is so dry. Like, I don't think the average fan, especially if they're not like a native English speaker, you might not even know he's joking. Like, his style of thing is just a really dry sort of like, he almost jokes like he's shit, but he does like the Mithy thing where it's like, I'm shit, but everyone else is shitter. That's like the joke he does. That's his style, you know. Well, the problem with that is that's not, even though to me that is the same, that's not the same as going, I'm the best and I'm going to destroy you all. That's more blatant. So I feel like some of it also gets lost. I also do think, by the way, it all does tie into that, which is because you've got these giant core streamers and rabid fan bases, it's made people who, by the way, would have done some of this a little bit more sort of like, in English, the word is reticent, like a little bit more scared to do it. Like they're like, what happens is, here's the analogy. Imagine if you go and jump in a swimming pool, but it's freezing cold water, right? The next time you go to jump in, think about when you go into the pool, you have to make yourself go into it. If you just put your toe in, you're going to go, ooh, no, it's too cold. The problem is, there's people in the league right now, I can tell you, like, think about people like Upset. Bro, these people back in the day were spicy as fuck. They're not now. In fact, I'll even make the joke. My boy Upset even does do the reckless. I notice when he speaks on broadcast and he's not annoyed, he does that like really soft-spoken voice. Like, I don't know. I guess me and Mickey and Lane. Mate, if someone came and like stood on his foot, he wouldn't be like that. He'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, he'd get the German in him come out, mate. So now people are all scared. I agree. They're all scared, right? If the joke goes wrong, you'll be the source of drama for 3 days, and then everyone will be telling you to kill yourself from the other team or whatever fan base you've insulted. And there is also a part where this is why, like, the whole regionalistic part of like we're French and we're Spanish. Well, the problem is you might have found this yourself, Peter. If you criticize a Spanish player, there's a sort of 15-year-old kid where they just go, why are you racist against Spanish people? You're like, I'm not even talking about Spanish people. I'm talking about that player for that team. Like, I'm actually critiquing how super, like, lanes or something. It's not about Spanish. So there is a sort of person where I agree that it's gotten too sort of like, they overreact to actually fairly mild comments, so it makes people really scared to do a real trash. I'll even say, by the way, the obvious example, we talked about it last split, is this is why I actually really liked when Kyoto from GX had the balls to be like, actually, GT's not going to bloody make Worlds, and we're beating them anyway. Like, that's what we all say we want, but by the way, look at the reaction. One, that backfired him a million times over, and then people will probably never let him live it down now. So I think people, it's one of those ones where people say they want it, but I don't know if they do. I agree with you though, Freeze. There's another way you can do this, which is I'm not even trolling. It's just about doing things that make you stand out and make like iconic about you. Like you could even do a shit one. I'll give you a random example. Say you're not someone who has a crazy, but like if you are like Isma, unironically, if you did something silly like just wear a beret and then make that your thing, that would actually, like Ocelot with the scarf, because everyone forgets. That seemed whack when he first did that phrase. He's like, why the fuck's he wearing a scarf? He even told me, by the way, in one of his interviews, like it actually got really hard, because then if he ever went to events where it was really hot, he would say, fuck it, I'm just going to wear it. It's my brand, isn't it? Like, how can I not wear it? But I'll tell you what, it made him stand out. The second you saw that scarf, it's Ocelot. So similar. Even if it's a hat or some weird... By the way, that's even where, if you don't know Showmaker, it almost gets this. Showmaker had like LASIK surgery and doesn't need glasses, but because those glasses are so iconic, he just wears them without lenses now. Like, because he knows that it's his brand. It's like to be that nerdy little guy raging out when he's mid lane. I agree with that though. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be that you're the bad boy. You can just have your own like weird flair and your own little thing that adds a bit of spice. I'm with you. I think that does add to the broadcast. I think that helps fans mentally enjoy it. Also, it does help if you're really good at your trash talk. That will hit like a motherfucker. Like the obvious person again who could trash talk now is like Callisto or something, or Vladdy or something. But the problem as well is that's another thing. I do feel like there is a blocker here. That's why I brought up that topic, because as far as I can tell, mate, when I've seen those clips of Vladdy interacting with his teammates behind the scenes, when I've seen him play solo queue, I feel like this guy, if this was 10 years ago, he'd probably get fucking competitive ruling. He'd be spicy as fuck, this guy. I can just tell there's that demon inside
Greek,
there. Yeah, it's waiting to come up. But I've never seen it on LEC. LEC is just some chill guy just playing mid lane. It's like, we have sort of like beaten that out of people, I'm afraid, unfortunately. It's a bit of a bummer.
Well, he had some after like in the playoffs when they were playing very well, he had some spicy comments. That was very good. Or like the voice comms were very good. Yeah, from like they released the voice comms and it's like you guys are trash. I fucking 1v9. Give me MVP now. I'll do this team. It's just basically
that's pretty good. Yeah.
I mean. Just as an example for this, like obviously Flackett has his duck, but whatever Kazi does, like I don't even know what
Kazi is a great example. Yeah,
he's so good at it. Like I don't think there's a single person, like single other pro that hates Kazi, but like the way he somehow manages to be really spicy and really good with his trash talk, and just get away with murder, and it's very impressive. Like I mean, it makes me laugh all the time. Like it's impossible to stay mad at this.
Yeah, he's the most likable, I think, from all of the players because of his silly, goofy style. He's just like he plays the fool, and he's not the fool, but he plays the fool very, very well.
By the way, I'm with you as well. Like the real problem is we have a lot of really good players that just don't even try this. Like Caps, you would never know this guy was like the GOAT of EU if you just listened to him talk. You'd think he was like a fan of a player or something. Like he just got sort of this really silly, like kid-like personality. Humanoid himself's quite quiet. Like I said, by the way, Razork. The joke is like every time he wins or loses a game, he's fucking going to like listen to an emo band or something. This guy, he hasn't got the fucking spicy personality. He's just super chill, shy guy or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that's one thing I've realized when I was in an IP, right? But League of Legends is very nerdy players. Like from the games, League has the most nerdy players ever.
Yes.
Because we were living in an MP gaming house in Stockholm with the CSGO players. And I'm telling you, like, every single person on that team you want to be friends with.
Right.
That's like the vibe you get, from the CS players. They are I don't know how to, like, they are the bros,
No, I know what you mean.
Like,
yeah,
they just know they are funny. They just know what's up. They have charisma.
Yeah.
This is what's missing in League.
By the way,
it's very hard for the nerdy players.
One more thing I'll say as well is, to be fair, a lot of the people, I noticed you went for the golden era of EU. Well, that was also the people who got to play at the end of that open circuit. I do think that's a real thing as well. When you're playing like at LANs and you're on stage all the time, this is what people are really good at in CS. You get loads of opportunities to do like a big pop-off moment on camera or do like a cheeky comment or stand up and say, hey, sit the fuck down when you beat off the game 2 or whatever. And also, I'll just put this out there about being nerdy, mate. Without breaking any, I'm not doing like a breaking news here. Spoiler, when you had loads of LANs, you're going to go to a bunch of after parties, you're going to meet a bunch of fangirls, you're going to be more of like sort of a social person, as opposed to if every year you just sat in a gaming house in Berlin going like, what time scrims end? 11, like get a kebab. Like that's not the same life, is it? So like one guy's going to be really good at the game, the other guy's going to be good at other things, let's just say. Like the British way, I have always thought if anyone ever did deserve like a documentary, it is like Expect It, because Expect Expeke's documentary, Peter, would be one of those like VH1 behind the music, where it's like, and then the drugs and the girls went so far, then the success ended. Like, because here's the thing, he was a dope player, had loads of success, but I'll tell you what, he lived a fucking life. Like, this is the guy. If you could be reborn, that's who you'd be reborn as, mate. This guy lived the life. Yeah, he was living the dream.
The stories you guys think as fans, about Expeke.
Exactly. No. Exactly.
We need a documentary now.
Mate, I would love that. Yeah, I want some like Michael Jordan Last Dance shit, but like Expeke. What would he call? I guess it'd be like Expeke Last Hits. It'd be him doing that fucking thing around Ocelot on the bass.
Yeah, it would be very successful. Yeah. He had so many fans back in the day. Like everyone would watch it for sure.
Yes. Right. Okay. Peter, what is your bad point?
So my bad point is about. I mean, it feels like I'm punching a bit down but it's about, I don't understand what SK have been a roster that has, like, they've traditionally had pretty good GMing, they've like signed the right types of players and things like this, but I don't understand what they're doing with Rahel. Like, I just literally cannot understand what they've done in this offseason and why they've chosen to go in this way, right? And with Vitality had the situation with Hylissang. I kind of get it. They said they were going to build the team around him, but he underperformed multiple splits. He had the Bwipo interview. Like, if people think that the Bwipo stuff isn't on Hylissang, like, see how pissed off VTO is every single time Hylissang was like messing up. Because the person who was like flamed the most in that interview was VTO, right? So people say, "Oh, it's all been mended behind the scenes." It's not mended behind the scenes because you can see like VTO like tweeting like first time, haha, to Sayek and things like this whenever anything goes wrong with Hylissang. So like I kind of get that, right? Like I get the Vitality stuff, right? Because they were building around Hylissang, it didn't quite work out in that way. But the SK stuff, like they signed Loopy, who is like a mediocre Korean support, to go and play with you because you guys played together in Challenger. He played well last split. Again, I'm going to compare to Vitality. Hylissang had 2 bad splits in a row. But Rahel wasn't the best this split, but he was really, really good last split. And now they've just gotten rid of him with no like discussion at all. No like explanation. Is it because he's underperforming? Is it because, he threw a table at somebody behind the scenes? I have literally no idea, and I just can't understand it. And they brought in like. So the guy they brought in from KC, I was thinking, okay, so they had Rika Isma, supportive jungler, roaming mid laner, maybe it's not going to work as a combo, right? But now, and then they brought in this guy from KCB, who I haven't seen that much, and I thought, okay, they've clearly brought in a carry, they've brought in a Skumon, right? And then I went back and watched his games, and he's just playing like supportive for the mid laner, so it looks like that they've just done the same thing over and over again, except that they've gotten rid of the guy who they kind of built their roster around, and they brought in Kedui, who like 3 or 4 years ago, like fine, maybe this guy deserves his chance at LEC. But actually, I was going to ask you this, Freeze. What's your thoughts on Kedui as a player being brought in?
This is gonna be like, for me, it's very non-interesting. Honestly, it's straight up. This is gonna be one of the other points that I have, but the bottom tier teams, that what they are doing is just so unattractive. They're like, we'll get to it, but basically Kedui, I used to play versus Kedui, right? And he used to be someone that I thought could be in the bottom 5 LEC teams, but he was never a factor in the game in a way where he would never like do anything. He would just like basically just exist in the game, play well to a certain degree, but he would not ever carry. And for me, it's like, when I used to play versus when I was in Spain and all the other AD carries, they were all like underwhelming. They were like scared of big personalities. They would be 100 CS down versus me, even when I just body language forward click and they just get scared. So at that point, the players are never gonna be good. Just honestly, straight up. Yeah.
I mean, he was on the BDS roster last year, right? But like, he was the 5th best player on that BDS. Like there was Jenax, Skumon, Rika, Paris, right? So to me, it looks like they've just brought in the guy because Rika wants them. Like, that's what it looks like from the outside. Like, they were like, oh, we need an AD carry. Rika, who are you going to bring in as an AD carry? Oh, I want Kedui because I played with him and we did well on BDS together. That's what it looks like. I mean, for me, I think since you were playing against him in Thrones, I think his 2v2 laning got better, but yeah, on a team fighting perspective, this guy is like Yeah, I mean he's worse than like let's say Jack Spectre or something like this for sure. And I don't understand it. I mean, it's hard for SK to be worse than they were last split, right? But like for me, SK have been this team that have been really, really creative with their roster decisions. They've been really, really smart. They've had an angle. You know, I don't like Loopy very much because I watched him in when he was playing in LLA. Right, I didn't think okay, this guy's special, but I understood it, right? But now, like, I just look at this pickup and I'm like, So yeah, so I found that really really frustrating. We'll talk about Heretics later, but like for me, I want to be excited by SK. I like what they've done over the years, but I just can't be, and that makes me sad.
Sure. By the way, you said about Kadui, but do you have any thoughts in general on the SK roster moves, Freeze?
Not really. Like it's just I'm not interested in teams that are not trying to win, and it's very obvious that they're just trying to survive. It just feels very very bad for me.
But it's I know what you mean, because I've always said, I always do this disclaimer, but I'll do it again. Obviously, in fact, Freeze even remembers this. I used to work way back in the day for SK Gaming. And when I used to work for them, I actually know the guy who still runs SK Gaming to this day. And if you don't know, he empowered, at least I don't know if he still is now, but I know in the past years, it was Crepo was actually like the secret GM for the last few years. And basically, the approach the SK guy always took was, he was never going to be the guy who like spent the most money and tried to win the league. His approach was more like, be the most efficient team in the league. So like spend just enough to be a playoff team. And then what you do then is you almost take it like a lottery ticket. Like if I'm in the playoffs, then, you know, maybe the lineup also like, maybe it turns out I have a player that's better than I thought, or we just have a great like composition of guys and we just do a playoff run and we make like top 3 or top 5 or something. But if we do that on like the money that it would cost to have like the 7th best team, then I've sort of like beat the game, haven't I? I haven't had to bankrupt my org, but I've gotten some results and I'm relevant. Now that worked for many, many, many years. And in fact, you even look at the last few years, I think last year, think about the summer, everyone forgets that they were like competitive in the BO1s. You have actually had a whole bunch of times where I agree with you, Peter. I thought they were a very shrewdly GM team, actually. It did look like you were clearly not working with much money. I've said this before, that the strategy was you would get like one person that you were willing to sort of pay star money, and then the others you just surround them. So you try to pick a star with that, obviously. Like I've heard back in the day it was Treats. I'm going to guess it was Niski in this last lineup. You get one star player, and then what you do is you do things that you do here. You gamble on a Korean prospect that could be good. You get like a European player that solo laner probably that someone doesn't think is that great. And then you just fill out the roster and you just hope you overperform how much you spent, basically. The problem is, if you're not spending much and you're having these results, it just becomes a bomber to follow the team. I know what you mean. This will lead into Freeze's point later, but it just makes it not interesting as a squad. Because if I look at this team now, I'm with you, Peter, the Rahel guy was my one sort of hope that the games would be interesting. It wasn't great last split, I'll give you, but please do not delete guys. Last summer, this guy was smurfing in those BO1s. It's funny that everyone complimented Noah when he came in the league and did that. This guy looked just as good. Like he looked like a demon, mate. So like to me, I'm really shocked by that, because I'm with you. I would have been doing it any other move I could do to sort of try and like bring that guy back to life if it were, because he actually seemed like he was like underrated at times.
But the thing is, why put in Kedui with Loopy? Like that's like you put in Loopy as like a guy to like supplement Rahel. Like if you want to bring in Kedui, so I don't think they should. But let's say they've made the decision. You know, Riku Kedui carries on BDS. They have like BDS Academy, like who were the top ERL team last year. Bring in somebody that he's played with before. He has good synergy with Prime. Prime is he was on IJC EC Japan. You know the French.
Right. Okay. The one that was in the EMEA. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in the EMEA finals, right? Like, bring in a guy like that, right? Like, if that's what you want, if your decision is to bring in Kadui, don't bring him in and play him with Loopy. Like, bring him in with somebody that he's played with in the past.
Yes.
Even if it's DOS. Even if it's DOS, like, do that, right?
Okay,
like,
fair enough.
But yeah, that's kind of my feeling on this. It's frustrating because now they've got Loopy, and like, frankly, I don't see the upside of Loopy.
Okay. By the way, I will say, though, I've just realised, Freeze, Peter Dun's actually just ignored your advice. He's just gotten rid of his iconic branding, which was that luscious Vidal Sassoon hair that was like coming out the salon at all time. Mate, it was gorgeous. It was like something out of fucking Greek mythology or something. It was so fucking silky, and it had volume. It did look a little bit like you were a Lego man. It was just stuck on your head, but it looked great. Now you've gone for this weird little kid look. You look 15 or something, mate.
I mean, all I say is, Dutch visa interviews, and I leave it at that.
You just wanted to look professional, right? I see. Well, to be fair, I will say that is the one downside of like when you make like a passport with it. You can't on the photo. It can't have like the hair go outside the edge and over the line and stuff. So you do have to have it like inside the box. So it's true. It's true. They finally boxed Peter Dun in and made him conform to the system. There you go. I like it. Okay. Shout out to the Dutch in that sense. They are a very plain and straightforward people in that regard. Right. Now we're going to go on to my bad point. And my bad point, I'm actually going to take it for 1 second. And I'm going to reference something I was thinking myself when I watched the EMEA Masters, which is when EU Masters, as it used to be called before, Middle East and Africa just somehow added in. I still don't even know what that's about. I mean, my joke is I think they're just setting up to one day add Falcons and all these people from the Middle East and probably have the finals in Riyadh one day. So I think that's what that's for. But for now, it's just a change of the name. It's all just EU players pretty much, guys. But when they have this finals, one thing I do think is a bit of a bummer, because I was thinking about these players like Nemesis and Crowley that have been in those finals in the past. It's like, wait, you play it online now? And it's just like the casters are in the studio. So I'm going to make this point about LEC. I think it's kind of a bummer that we've gone to the point now where, bro, people don't even expect any LEC finals to be in a stadium. Now we just accepted from the COVID years, sadly, because by the way, it's great for Riot. You save money. You don't have to book out the stadium and travel there and bring all the equipment and set up the things and have all the tech So the problem is we've just gotten used to all the playoffs just being in a studio. And like, put it this way, Freeze, back in your day, I always thought one of the coolest things was, first of all, like the roadshow. You could see teams had different results on the roadshow week, mate. Some teams got better, almost like Gambit style. Some teams got way worse. They couldn't handle traveling or the drama of being on stage. And I think for finals especially if you ever watch like LCK, bro, you would never get some of these upsets or some of these like amazing dominant 3-0s if it wasn't in a stadium, if you didn't have the pressure of the crowd and the moment and that caster got doing the great hype thing for you. That's different from playing in the LCK studio. And so similarly, to me, it's just kind of whack. Like that essentially, no matter what happens this split, it's all just in a studio. Like I want to bring back that part where at least the final, at least make the grand final weekend, for fuck's sake, because I want those to be in stadiums again where you have the fans and the crowd and it feels epic to win or to lose. What do you think?
So I agree.
Yeah.
It was one of the best, or like one of the things that got me into esports was back in the day before franchise. You used to travel every month. There was a tournament every month somewhere in the country. And you just like lived in a hotel and you played in that country, and then that was it. The tournament was over. You played the whole tournament there, and then next month you had like a different tournament, almost as like majors in CS:GO, in a way. And that was super fun. And now you just get like 200 people in live in the finals. It feels horrible. It feels horrible for sure. I wish they would. Maybe they will change it in the future, but I'm not sure if they're scared of like not selling out the audience or anything. But it's definitely, as a player and even as a viewer, I was as a viewer at like venues. It's so much better if there's a lot of people involved. The environment is super nice. The hype is so much better. It is just so nice to have it. It's kind of like missing now.
Fully agree. It's also going to feel so much worse because now they have the roadshows, right? Is it this split? It's this split, right?
They have the one that's in Spain or something, right?
Yeah, they have one. They have a roadshow for Koi and a roadshow for K-Corp, right? Which is good because it's good now that Koi and K-Corp are actually really good.
Agreed.
Because it's going to make the roadshows so much hype. But imagine you go for a regular season game to Paris. You have all of those crowds like cheering for you, even if you are Heretics versus SK, and you're the warm-up act for the
main event.
Yeah, like it's still going to be hype. Right? Like, it's still going to be incredibly hype. And then you go to the end of your playoffs, and then you play your final in front of 200 people.
True.
I mean, like that is going to be rough. That is going to.
I mean, I talked with Karzi. I experienced it myself. It's like the worst thing is if you win. For example, we won LCS when I was coaching 100Ts with no audience. It just feels so much worse. It's just like it doesn't even feel like you won something, when there's no audience involved. It's just like, and Karzi was the same. Where he was saying like, we won, then no one was there. Like what? Then 200 people were there. Like it doesn't even, like it didn't feel real. So.
By the way, I don't know if anyone saw.
Karzi?
No. By the way, Karzi on Twitter himself. You what?
It would be Mad Lions 2023 because you were
Yeah.
if it was Kazi.
Yeah, by the way, Kazi himself on Twitter, when the guy who was like one of those splice guys said something about this topic, he was sort of, or maybe it was the Mad Lions, it was the Mad Lions guy, maybe. He said something about exactly this topic of sort of like, oh, you know, like, it should be played in a stadium. And then he just basically was like, well, we won ours in a studio. He himself even like dogged on himself, you're right? Like, that's what personality is ridiculous. He almost like discounted his own championships because he was just sort of like they were just in a studio, basically. So he's not wrong. Yep. That is true. It's true. Right.
It just feels so much worse. It just feels so bad.
Let's go on. What is your ugly point going to be, Freeze? You've teased it, so come and set it up.
Yeah, I sort of tease it. It's sort of like 2 points maybe. But first one is, this is like a very personal grudge from like before it was franchised, LEC, and then into franchising. I always thought that franchise is going to be very bad for the league. Now, it's been very good in some regards, and it's been very bad in some regards. In one of the regards that I really hate franchising, or overall the state of the league that it's that there's only very few teams that are actually trying to accomplish or do something in the league. Everyone else is just like on survive mode, or they want to sell the spot for 4 splits, like a rogue, you know. Every split they're trying to just fill the roster with somehow like survive and then sell it. And it feels very... It's hard to watch. You kind of like... I just know that the teams are not trying, and I lose interest in them when I know that they're not trying to win. In terms of... I don't know if it's budget constraints, or if it's like a manager's problem or something. And that ties into my other problem that I have with majority of the leagues is I don't understand... Or like for me, it would be very fun if a head coach would be also a manager or general manager, the way it is in football, where a coach and a head coach would be doing roster for his team and then hiring assistant coaches for his team. Usually, from my experience when I was coaching in America, the way it is, it's complete other way. It's like where general manager hires the players and hires the coaches. And they have sort of like very little impact on the roster building. And this is it's gonna be spicy, but I feel like majority of the general managers in LEC should not be there. There are people who are not qualified. They have absolutely no idea about, you know, like building rosters, building characters, matching characters together, knowing how the player plays in a certain environment, how he performs. A majority of the general managers, I feel like, get influenced by Reddit. They get influenced by other players' opinions. They get influenced by other like hype and reputation. It's all bullshit, in my opinion. And it will eventually become a thing where there will be qualified people in those roles. But I feel like it either has to be someone who's very good at building personalities together, like matching personalities together, or an ex-pro or ex-player who knows how to build rosters, who like has like a background, 10 years plus background in esports, and changed 10 different teams, you know, and stuff like that. Eventually, it will be the case. But those two are my very ugly points for LEC, where I feel like it's in a very bad spot, and something has to change in that regard.
I mean, the coach part must be right up your alley, Pete. Your whole thing's building up coaching staffs, right?
I was thinking about how spicy I want to be on this one. So first thing, I agree with you. I think that basically the players and the coaches are the ones who are front-facing, right? So the GMs can do basically a lot of things. I don't mind if you are a GM and you are willing to go out publicly and defend your decision publicly, right? And the thing that annoys me about the system we have right now in Europe is a lot of the GMs don't go and defend themselves, right?
Right.
Like Papa Smithy on 100 Thieves, I give you an example, right? Like when they brought up Busio, he went and battered for that guy on literally every single show. And he's like, if this guy's bad, it's on me, things like this. And everyone knew, I am the guy who's making this decision. I am the guy who you hold accountable if it goes to shit. I think that there are a lot of orgs right now in LEC who the people making the decision are too afraid to go public and go and say, this is my decision. because if it goes wrong, they're going to get clowned on, or they're going to like potentially lose their job and things like this. And so the people,
Yeah, it feels like they're protecting their job. There's so many like managers who are just doing everything to stay in their managing role for as long as possible because they know they're not qualified for that job. It literally feels like that for me at least. But
and
like, yeah. Sorry to jump in.
no, it's completely correct. And basically, I hate that people who don't have accountability, like the people who are responsible for the decisions, aren't willing to take the accountability public for making their decisions, right? And I don't talk, well, for various reasons about EG that much, right? But one thing I will say on EG, there were many things that happened on EG that I'm not going to go into. But one thing I will always say is that Andrew Barton, who was the GM, who's now on FlyQuest, was willing to take the brunt of responsibilities for decisions. In a world where Jojopyun isn't promoted and he put his job on the line, and you had this, and you had Till Verdeman, who is S5E8 Iron. He's the guy on the GM on Mad Lions, who was the GM on Splice. He's willing to basically take the fall and be willing to go and say, okay, as a coach, maybe I don't agree with the decision you're making, but I will take the hit for you for management, or I will take the hit from you publicly, and this is something that I will do, right? And these two GMs were like the best GMs I ever worked with, because they would basically not be influenced by public. They would be like, okay, I've done my research to hire you. I'm going to trust you to build a roster, right? And some of the other GMs I work with were basically like, I've hired you, but I'm also going to give you this roster with players that you don't want to work with, that you don't think fit well together. Oh, but by the way, when things go wrong publicly, you're going to take the shit for it, right?
You're going to get fired.
Yeah, you're going to get fired. I don't get fired. You're getting shit on for draft? Okay, well, I'm somebody else on the team is going to draft. What do you mean? We're not going to announce that publicly? You're still going to get shit on for draft? Oh, well, sucks. I mean, it sucks, the other thing that I will say is obviously my favorite GMing story of all is when I joined Splice. This was the roster, the Wonder Mickey Senkooks, Kobe, and Cold, Trashy roster, right? And when I joined Splice, this GM, we were supposed to have an interview. He ghosted on me. He ghosted on me the first time, and the second time, he put pictures of himself on Instagram of him going to Disneyland with his girlfriend at the time when he was supposed to be interviewing me. So this was the first time, and then on Spice, and then later they got a new GM, and then the new GM. So that was the first time, and then obviously I just withdrew my application. You can't join an org that treats you like that because you're completely fucked for the future. Okay. But then the second time I was going to join Splice, the new GM basically said, "Oh, we're interested in hiring you still, but by the way, you're not allowed to talk to any of our players because you're outside the org." And then I'm joining, thinking, "Oh, I'm going to work with Wanda, Kobe, Mickey. Oh, this is such an awesome roster." Join. None of the players want to play with each other. They're like literally saying, sure, "We're not playing with each other anymore. There's nothing you can do." And then I just go to the GM and he's like, "Oh, there's no way that we could have predicted this. There's no. I'm so sorry, but you've signed the contract. Let's see what we can do about it." And I wish that these things were just like the stuff that you hear is sure, so crazy. And the stuff I'm saying is stuff that I feel comfortable talking about because it happened to me. But I've heard worse stuff happening to other players. Holy moly, some of the. Oh, I don't want to.
I'll go as far as 70% of GMs are not. They should not be there. They should be either replaced or someone else should be doing it. It's just crazy. It's that big of a problem in our league and Western League, and NA is the same. So.
Sure.
I mean, I think basically nobody. So people will often call out bad GM. So what will normally happen is, if there has been a situation with a bad GMing situation, people are often too afraid to call out because they don't want to ruin their chances, like a player, right? It took a long time, for instance, for a lot of the bad stuff that was going on behind the scenes for Fnatic to basically happen. It took it took like 5 years later in the future for anyone to talk about stuff like this. I mean, I think that it's hard to have that expectation on coaches and players to call out bad Jimmy, because you make an enemy of this guy.
Oh yeah, you're getting kicked. And the players, I've seen so many instances where the players don't want to talk bad about the GM because they are afraid of being
vice versa.
replaced.
Yeah,
straight up.
Like Odo, when people were saying, "Well, this guy's retiring," so he didn't get a team.
Like what the fuck, bro?
like what the fuck?
Sure.
But I think that the one thing we can do is maybe if you have a good GM, like talk up the good GM.
Yes.
Right. Like then you immediately know, right? Like if everyone is saying Andrew Barton is a good GM, or you're saying like Till Verneman is a good GM, maybe then you'll see who's not. And then
Till was awesome. Till was insane.
Till was crazy good.
Very good. Very good.
By the way, I agree on all these points. Like, I'll give you an obvious example. Here's how people don't remember the order that narrative's happening, so they blame the wrong people, right? When Yamato Cannon coached Carmine Corp last year, he had that really terrible split, right, where they were winning no games and he got fired. But then what people forget is the next split, they just ran the same roster back with the assistant coach, who's now the head coach. They also had terrible results. Then in summer, they just completely changed the roster and got really good. And then ever since then, Carmine Corp's gotten better and better and better. Like, as far as I can tell, Yamato Cannon wasn't the problem in that scenario. Like, they were also just a terrible team even when he left. But in that situation, what we're going to act like is we're almost acting like the coach who came after him is the one that changed the roster. He didn't. That'll be the GM that did that. And the GM gave Yamato the team that failed in the two splits, and he only did one of them. So I agree, fans don't think that way because they think of the player and how he played in the game. Then they think maybe one level higher is what the coach did and how did he work with it, or what could he have gotten with those players. But people never go then up to the GM level. They just tend to focus on who made the mistakes at those two levels. So I think that's an example. And also, the other thing I hate is in the story you're telling about how, like, you sign a coach, presumably because you want the qualities that coach has, but then you give him the players and you give him his coaching stuff. Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. He should at least have input in it, because another thing I think that has been a lesson I've learned from watching sports for many, many, many years is there's no such thing as like a perfect coach that can coach every type of player. Like, bro, there's some all-time great coaches. I mean, I'll give you a really quick football example. I'm a mega boomer, so I used to watch football in the 90s, right? And believe it or not, one of the best coaches in football ever in the 90s was that Italian guy, Fabio Capello, who coached AC Milan and then Real Madrid. And this guy was godlike. I'm telling you, like, he was unbelievable. But then later in the 2000s freeze, he became the England manager, right? And this was when England had the golden generation that failed, right? So I'm not joking. Loads of people now, because they only know him when he coached England, think he sucks as a manager and think he's shit and say all the stuff like, oh, what was he doing? It's like, no, if I had to guess, he probably had like the wrong culture of players, or maybe he was even told stuff, by the way, like, you have to play all the midfielders. I'm sure they did all these things that we'll never know about that made him look like he sucked. But my point is, he can't suck if you look at the rest of his resume. Like, it has to be that a certain era and a certain type of player. He was the shit. You can't trip over and have the results this guy did. He had everything in football, basically. I think the same thing in league. The joke is, Peter himself's in this call. People do, if they get the narrative, they go, oh, Peter's really good at building teams. They think that also means, by the way, that you can just give him any player and he'll make that player better. It's like, no. When Peter, you might think he's just a naive optimist. He's picking the people he wants to work with and develop, though. He's not just going, give me it's not like Peter, there's not a statue of Peter on fucking Ellis Island, like, give me your sick, you're weak, and you're broken, and I will make them into top elite. No, he's picking a player he's watched in some nerdy angle on Solo Queue or an ERL or TCL or something, and he's going, I just think there's more in that player that I can bring. It's not like, just give me any player and I'll make it work. I don't think any coach can do that. And I think, sadly, we do act like coaches themselves. It's like FIFA, and they have a rating and stats, and we just plug them into a system and it works. And like, oh, wow, Peter Dun and rookies. And not every rookie. It has to be a rookie that has some special quality that he sees. Because I'll give you the obvious example since you brought up football. If in football you actually did treat people like this, you would never get the teams and the team cultures you have. I'm a Liverpool fan, right? If you're a Liverpool fan, that guy Jurgen Klopp wasn't just being given players and then again making them way better. He was picking them. He was going and looking in, like, German league or like Serie A. Actually, this guy's not being used properly. He's on the bench of their team, but in my team, I'd use him in this role. Like, if he was just throwing a player, who knows what he would do with them? Like, maybe it'd work, maybe it wouldn't. Also, the obvious other part here is, if there's ever a player, by the way, that has like, I don't know, a spicy personality or a really extreme playing style, you have to have the buy-in of the people who are going to work with him. You can't just tell them, hey, you just got to work with this guy now. Like, that's going to be a nightmare. It's very different if you go into it going, right, I consent to work with, I'm willing to take the risk of working with a spicy person or like a guy that people consider one-dimensional. If you're just given that guy, it's like, okay, what am I supposed to do? I think there's so many things can go wrong. And by the way, to touch on the thing you said, Freeze, the obvious example of why the old days when you were in the ULCS were better in that sense is, look, we didn't have all the other positives of franchising, but I will always give this example. If you fucked around and you had a really bad GM squad and it was at the bottom of the ULCS, well, guess what? Enjoy promotions, because Jizuke and Crownie and all these fuckers are coming to bash your head in, mate. Like, the first thought I even had when I looked at some of the rosters in this split was, mate, I'm not even a big Los Ratones fan, but after seeing what they did in this last month or so, mate, I'd like to see them play SK. And if they beat SK, you know what? Maybe they're in the league. You know, obviously I know that can't happen. That's not the business world we live in. But who the fuck wouldn't love that? And by the way, I'll even give you the other side of that. If it actually happened that match took place and somehow SK won, we'd all have to respect SK more, wouldn't we? We'd all have to go, oh, wait, there's a difference in levels. That would actually earn SK respect, by the way, if they then kept their spot. Because, by the way, that also happened a few times. You'd have the Millenniums of the world that like miraculously just keep their spot, and you'd go, oh, fair play. I actually thought they totally something. They must have something. They must have some play. They must at least be good on stage, for example. You know, I think that used to actually almost be like the error correcting factor, the promotion, right?
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's, I was a big fan of promotion, but I agree with like the way it is for business and partners. That
yeah,
is very
of course.
bad. But there's an easy way to fix it, right? It's like, just take the top 4 teams, EU Masters, right? Or top 2, let's say. I would rather see top 4 and match them against the top 4 LEC players in some sort of a tournament. Because, you know, the top 4, the bottom 4 teams in LEC, they have 6 months break anyway. Like, they're getting paid for...
Oh,
you know, like
right, I see.
They played for 6 months, and 6 months they're getting paid for nothing to just make a tournament. That is for...
By the way, I actually suggested this in the past. If you remember, it's a really old school point now, but they used to actually literally do this in Korea. You remember this, Pete? It was called NLB. What they would do is if you didn't make the playoffs of the OGN tournament, so you were the bottom teams in there, they used to take you and put you like this against the top like challenger teams, basically, and it had its own tournament. Yeah. And also, the other cool thing was, it was a way of finding out who was the best of the rest. Like, you could actually see, were you actually like the whatever, set, I guess it would have been like the...
No, but then, you know,
like if you didn't make top 4, so it would be if you were the 5th best team or not.
And then it's like, if you do the tournament like that, then you see the bottom 4 teams, the players will get exposed that they're paychecking.
Oh, the hype will be crazy. Yeah.
You know, like there's so many players that are completely paychecking and just doing nothing. And if you match them against the upcoming EU Master bottom or top 4 teams, and they lose versus those, they will get trashed on by the community, and they will be forced to start doing something because they're doing jack shit. You know, it's just like, it's that simple. Like, just do it, you know, like.
And like I say, I also think it would be just so cool for players that by the way, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'd find this out. Maybe I'd find out Crownie actually would lose to fucking Rahel. Who knows? But I want to at least see it. Let me see that match.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go one step further. Put them in EMEA in summer. Put like literally the summer tournament is going on, you know, just before Worlds. Put them in that tournament and see how they do. Frankly, if a player like says, oh, you know, it's too much stress, or oh, you know, I'm not taking it seriously because it's just the EU Masters, kick that guy out of the league, right? Like, I mean, like,
true.
What the fuck, bro?
Yeah,
like, this is a competitive environment. Like, what do you mean? You need 6 months on Hawaii and then just drinking your fucking straw drink or what? Just live with it. You're gonna play for 4 years anyway. It's just like, fucking deal with it. It's just like.
I mean, just one like random tangent on this because actually, you know, it's easy to hide as a GM if you have a lot of resources, right? Like, if you have some teams in the LEC have twice as much, maybe even 3 times as much budget as lower teams, right? Like, I would say a Fnatic get a lot more input than in money coming in than say an SK or like say a Rogue or something like this, right? But that's not the point. The point isn't about results. It's show that there's a project that can work, right? So to go back to Papa Smithy and 100 Thieves, right? Like, what is going to define us as an org? We're going to develop talent and we're going to promote our own talent, right? And this is one of the reasons why I have a lot of time for Casey, right? Because Casey said, this is what we're going to do, and that's what they did. Right? They promoted Seiken and Kabashad, and it was a complete fucking disaster, right? Like, and they came 10th 2 splits, but that's what they said. They said, we're going to promote people internally within our team, and even when the results went to shit, they stuck by it. And obviously now we celebrate because of Laddie and Calist and things like this, but they stood by their policy even when it went to shit, right? And it sucked for Yamato because I think Yamato should have been given more than one split. But frankly, the fact that they gave Seiken, Targamas, and Kabashad 2 splits, to me, is not a bad thing. They got memed on it, but to me, that's a good thing. Like, it's a good thing that they gave these guys the chance, and obviously they're never going to play LEC. Sorry, I apologize to any Kabashad fans on this, but frankly, like, he's not going to play LEC anymore, right? But they gave them the chance, right? And that's something you can do as a lower table team, right? If you have an academy team, promote your guys, say we're going to live and die by these guys, no matter what, right? And give them the chance, right? That's what I would say.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that too. You just make sure you have a good coach that can guide the rookies, and then give them 2 splits at least. Like just giving one split to a player or a coach it just doesn't work. You can't do anything, you can't fix anything. It's just garbage straight up.
Also, I'm just going to say this, even though this will sound weird, I actually do think another problem as to why it looks like so many teams just build bad rosters is too many of them really do still do the thing of like, I'm going to gamble on loads of rookies from the RLs. Like, certain ones that you should. Like, by the way, obviously those BDS Academy players pretty much all deserved a shot. Like, they earned it from what they did, and the hype was real behind the scenes. But some of you probably should have signed the Crownies of the world. Like, that also would have made your team more valuable, because remember, if you take the shot at the rookie and you miss, you're going to end up with a whack lineup and no personality and no reason to watch. Like it's actually one of the reasons why I could have made one of my points. I was going to make it, but I didn't do it, Peter. That actually some of the lower rosters did keep their same roster. Look, I'm not hyped for it, but at least I'll find out if that player actually is good or not. Whereas instead, like the difference is, I know all these AD carries won't make it, but I know Crowley would have been good, or he would have shown me something,
There, for me, it also feels, it's like, giving 2 splits is very good, but there's teams that are giving the same players 2 years.
That's true. Yes.
It's just like after 2 splits, if the guy is clearly not improving, don't keep him for another 4 years, bro. Like, what the fuck are you doing? And it's just like,
sure. Right, Peter, what is your ugly point?
So segueing right onto what you were saying, Thorin, is at the first episode of this new Best Damn League Show format we talked about. One of the things which I was really, really afraid about from Heretics' side is that they promoted these 2 rookies and they weren't going to give them the chance because their academy team was going to dominate. Obviously, we had the EMEA Masters, Los Ratones won. That was a big story. It's great for the scene. I thought that I would have enjoyed it more if I got to see them win the best of 5 against KC.
They were supposed to play a better team in the semis, basically, right?
But I'm happy they won. It's good that obviously it's no secret that Heretics were trying to sign Nemesis, and it's like, thank God I wasn't like going crazy, right? Like I thought, okay, this guy had the chance and he played well at EU Masters. What I will say though is that if anything, so I will say I know from behind the scenes that the Heretics Academy roster was winning like 95% of their scrims. They barely lost the scrim for like months. They were completely destroying everybody. I think I don't even know if the main team was included, but they were destroying everybody. And the thing which really scared me when I saw this Heretics Academy roster is this roster is going to stomp everyone at EU Masters. They're going to like win EU Masters, and then changes are going to happen. Like maybe before the time when they should have happened. And basically, the fact that they choked as badly as there's no way they should have lost to Phantasma. Like the team that they lost to in the quarterfinals of EU Masters, it is the single biggest shock in EU Masters history, right? That this happened, and at least this way now it forces them to try to continue with the rookies that they promoted into the team and give them a proper timescale, right? Because there's definitely let's say a Tracin or like a Sagittor really popped up at the EU Masters, I would have been really, really scared for some of the people on the Heretics main roster. Whereas I think that those guys showed some growth. But it's an ugly point because I didn't get to see my Los Ratones versus versus Los Heretics. I think Los Heretics is the academy.
Yeah.
Because that would have been the big one to go and really, really judge how good is Crownie, how good is Nemesis, can Pulse be exploited. We didn't get it, which makes me sad. But obviously, you can only beat what's in front of you. But yeah, my ugly point is this is like one of the biggest strokes of all time that I've ever seen. But in a sense, it's ugly, not bad, because it means that now I get to go and see the proper development of players that I wanted to come and see, right? And it looks like the other rookies that I want to see, obviously, like Casey aren't cutting. Like the rookies that I really wanted to see this year were Kalist, Nak on Vitality, who's very clearly, like, Vitality made the decision that they were going to go with Nak and Sayak over Hilly, and then I get to see Carlson. Right? And those were the guys that I really cared about at the start of the year, and now I get to see them. So it's a sense a bad point, but it has good positive outcomes, I would say.
Okay. What do you think, Phrase?
For me, Nak is, when we finish with Nak is the example of giving him, 2 splits, for example, because he's smurfing in scrims, from what I heard. He's just like literally shit stomping everyone, and then you see the first split, and he's just like afraid to engage. You see him 3-0 and he's not doing anything. Then Karzi is losing it because no one is doing anything, so he's like the AD carry that's engaging. This is clearly like a player that you should keep, you should stick with. I'm glad they're sticking with him, and that they're gonna keep trying to get him comfortable on stage, because he's apparently super good. So yeah, I'm curious how they will do with Niske as well. It's gonna be very interesting, and I think it's gonna be good. It's a team that I'm looking forward to. They have like the things that I want to see. Like rookies, and then you have Niske that is he gonna shit the bed or not? Frankly, it's like a support role is pretty easy if you have knowledge, then it's not that hard. But again, you can always shit the bed. But yeah. For EU Masters, I didn't watch that much of EU Masters, but for LEC, I'm very excited with Heretics. Yeah.
I will say this is also where actually a very cynical thing that general managers do that actually does my head in is exactly this. Even though, by the way, the most famous example ever of this working was Rogue when they first did franchising. Rogue basically fucked up the GMing of the LEC team completely. That most people watching the show right now couldn't even name me 4 players on that team. You would never do it. Like they were all the left. They were HQ. So you can't even remember them, guys. There were players you don't even remember. But if you remember, they had this shit hot academy team, which was all the players that became Rogue. Basically, it was like fucking Larson and Inspired. And what they did was, once they realised after the first split, this main team's garbage, they just basically cannibalised completely the roster of the academy squad. And look, it made their top team really good. But the problem in this case is, first of all, they were like once in a lifetime academy players. The idea your academy team is going to have people like Larson and Inspired on, like, you're lucky if you have one of those players. They had both at the same time, by the way. So that was already very unrealistic that you were going to get that. But then also, if you add in, what you've done there is when you make that gamble, the worst thing about that gamble is it usually means still only one team can succeed. You're just trying to transfer the sort of success from the academy team to the LEC team. Well, what people don't think through, this ties into that GMing conversation, is what if that doesn't work? Now you just fucked up both teams. You've actually taken a healthy team, the one that's working in the academy system. And by the way, I'll add this in as well for talking about coaches. That coach is in nightmare mode now. He had a functioning team. So because his team works, he now has to lose his best players to the LEC team. And then, by the way, because it's last minute, he now gets way worse players and maybe even shit players. So now I don't even know what he has to look forward to for the rest of the year. Like, he doesn't even get to work with the squad he built up and he made work. And then also, the reason why I actually agree, especially on the Heretics point, Peter, is because if you would have changed players in this split, you'd have just been doing the same thing you already did in the off-season. Like, you're just saying, I'd gamble on another player. But after one split, you're going to change them. Like, mate, the same thing could happen to this player coming up. Maybe he isn't ready to come up yet. Maybe he should have the rest of the year in the EMEA/ERL circuit. And then you'll see at the end of the year if that's the player you want to promote and gamble on. Because again, I agree with you. One split for these players is kind of whack. It's just not the move. It doesn't make sense, especially because sometimes we do see these people come back 3 splits later and then they're really good. And you could have had him and you just fumbled that player and he was on your team, academy squad, on your LEC team. Now he's on someone else's team. He's going to look fucking sick. Were you going to say something?
But then again, as I touched on before, then you have players that are 3 years, 6 splits in the team, and it's just like, what the fuck are you doing? True. It's just like, I have to say it again. There's like okay,
Yeah.
give them 2 splits, but if they're not working after 2 free splits, don't keep them there.
And also, the harshest split to kick would be this winter one. It was all BO1s. Like, this wasn't even the one with, like, good sample size.
I mean, that's why I questioned the SK in the...
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair to Giants, like Closer said that he needed to step back for post. But anyway, but actually, I turn around this to you, Freeze.
Go on.
How much is enough time? How much time is enough time?
How much time is enough time?
Like ballpark here, obviously.
I think anything from 3 splits to 4 splits is like 2 splits already is enough time. I think 2 splits, 3 splits after 3 splits. If it's not working after 3 splits, next project move. Yeah. Too long.
By the way, I'll also add to the ugly point as well in this sense, Peter. This is why I do agree that it was a massive gamble to start the year. Like, don't worry, we're just going to experiment with Fearless, and then after the split, go, you know what? First stand was awesome. The whole year's Fearless. How was I supposed to GM between the splits then? What if I'd gone, Peter? Oh fuck! It's like, what if it'd been the other way around? Like, oh, it's standard lanes coming, so I'll hold with my roster. Then I find out it's Fearless the rest of that. Well, I gave the wrong example there because I gave the lane swap example. But what if it was like, right, I'm going to the old meta. Like, I have the best Orianna Azir player ever. So the joke is I've got like Power AV for all my bench. Which, all right, it doesn't matter if he doesn't play fucking whatever Aurora now. It's coming back to a normal meta. He'll play that. Well, then I can't GM my team if I don't know what the fucking format is. There's another thing I hate as well. So people also are treating all these splits like they're all identical. One was BO1, one's BO3. Like, it's all over the fucking place. It's all over the place, boys. Right, the last point of the show is going to be my ugly point. And I've purposely picked it. Remember, it's ugly, not bad. So it doesn't mean it's all bad. It just means there's something about it's a bit off. And I'm just going to say this right now. I think the person who actually, over this last split and first stand, has gained the most in rep from where they started the year to now is actually going to be Targamas on Carmine Corp. In the off-season, even people hyped about this team. I even saw KC fans like this. Some of them were just like, why have we got this support? Like, why keep him? Like, remember all the narratives? Does he talk? Is he just like shit in the game? He's another person, by the way, people thought like, wow, how many years does this guy get to have like, bad-looking splits? He just keeps getting picked all the time. So I think actually a mixture of the fact that the team had success, how they played, and as well, I do think actually, to go to your point earlier about bigging people up, Peter, actually Carmine Corp themselves did a very good job going out their way to say things like he's talking more in the comms. I mean, I think his coach said something, he'd be the MVP, people can hear the comms. By the way, those are great lines to drop. Those are bangers. People remember those. I think that actually added a lot. But the problem is, as you saw at first stand, when they asked Mickey X, what do you think about the fact that there's no lane swap? He actually even said, Carmine Corp was one of the teams where I actually wonder, will that affect them? Like, they were one of the teams where that was essentially the beauty of the lane swap, as a coach knows. You can hide a player, or you can reduce his weaknesses, or you can make the matchup not be as deadly if he can't play one side. So, essentially, the ugly point, I've written it this way. This is the split of truth for Targamas. If he has a good split now in normal standard lanes with a team that's now very, very hyped, then he's set. He's fine. He can be a pro for many, many years. He can have a great career. If he does badly this split, even if, by the way, it's because of all the fact it doesn't matter. People are going to flame this guy so hard, bro. Like, the backlash, people will go back to all the old narratives from last year, and it'll be like this last split never happened. So I think for this guy, the rest of them, the champions, like, they could probably get away with coming second. So if he doesn't perform well this split, I think people will flame him. And also, I'll add this in there as well. People before themselves, even if they hyped him, didn't know how good Callista would be. After seeing how he played at first standing in the LEC, people now want this guy to be like the caps of ADC. So I'll tell you what, if you're the guy who's considered you're holding him back in the lane, people are going to hate your guts, mate. I don't even care that whole thing of like, but he's Belgian, so he speaks French, bro. One, you aren't French, and two, they're going to hate you even more, mate. Like, they're gonna be so on the Callista side of that equation. You better be like his fucking Robin to his Batman. If you aren't, it's going to be harsh. So I think this is the split of truth. I think he might think he's already made it through. Like, yeah, just became a champion and made the finals. But I'll tell you what, people have a short memory in esports, mate. If you do badly, they only remember this game. What do you think, Fraze?
I mean, for Targamas, it's one of the... I feel bad for Targamas, for sure. Because, he's shy. I feel like I haven't met him, but from my observation, he's a shy person. And it's type of a player who gets influenced the most by the environment in the team.
Right.
And like how he feels that his teammates are thinking about him. If he feels like, oh, they think I'm bad, then he's going to underperform super bad. He's going to play like shit. But then if he feels like, oh, my team actually trusts me, then he starts playing super well. And for a player like that, if it's like the one thing you remember for is because people flame you how bad you are, and like Baus says, this guy Targamas so boosted, then it's the worst possible case he could have gotten himself into. I feel bad for him, and I hope he's gonna overcome it and he's gonna perform. But it's a very bad spot for him. It's just like I like, honestly, I'm the guy who's rooting for him because I know how fucking hard it is for him.
Okay. By the way, you know that meme that everyone does, you know, all the girls on social media, Peter, where they're like, find someone who looks at you the way, like, you know, like, whatever, the way Captain America looks at Iron Man in Avengers or something. The meme like that would be, find someone who believes in you as a person and your personal growth. Like Carmine Corp believes in Targamas and Peter Dun believes in Kaiser. That's your relationship goals, everyone. Find someone who believes in you like these people.
I say, you know, I've said it before already, but like Rahel, fair enough. You know, I would say that for Targamas, I agree completely with your point and with Frieza's point. I would say that you look at Excel, what happened on Excel, the final thing for Excel that really put the nail in the coffin was when, I don't know if it was deliberate or it was an accident, but they leaked the fucking comms from scrims.
That killed him, mate. Yeah.
Dave scrims up where he's literally not talking,
yes,
and it's only Xerxes talking, and like, I mean, once that happens to you as a player, like, how does it come back to that? And, you know, every single time he even plays like a marginally bad game, Rahel's out to defend him on the coach is out to defend him. Ike is out to defend him and things like this. So, I mean, I agree. It's kind of a double or nothing split for Targamas. I think it's important. What counts as a good split? Because to me, I feel like KC overperformed last split. Sure. Not massively. I think I could have seen them coming top 3. But I think top 1 is a lot. So is second an underperformance? Is fourth? Like if KC came fourth, to me that is an impressive split next split. But people will be upset about it. So I mean, to me, a good performance from Targamas doesn't mean he has to be top 2. He just has to be top 4, in my opinion.
Top 3, I think. Top 3 is like, because you have Fnatic G2 and then the rest of the teams went to garbage.
Yeah, but Peter's like a believer in fucking Madcoy, and he has to still think Movistar.
I mean, they were very exciting, but then they like fall off the cliff. We'll see how they do this, but
yeah, I'm with you, mate. But listen, Peter's still riding with Jojo. You have to believe again. Find someone who believes in you.
Jojo,
exactly.
I love Jojo. I love him. I coached him in EG, and he's very funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, all I would say, I would say for that, the other guy as well is obviously Yike is the one who took the brunt of the criticism from First Stand. So we didn't talk about Keiko much, but like, I mean, I think the first week is going to be big for Yike as well, for setting the narrative for the rest of the year. Because I thought he was really, really important for the team in winter, but for some reason he's the one who was the person who underperformed, I would say, at First Stand. I think Vladdy was good. I think Kalist was good.
He underperformed the most at First Stand, yeah. It almost seemed like he overperforms in Europe and underperforms on international stage, which could have been the case why G2 kicked him in a way.
True, yeah.
But the thing is with Yike, you couldn't see if he was good or bad because he was getting covered by BB and Cups so much. It's like if you have BB and Cups in your team, it's just like you literally can't play bad. As a jungler, it's just impossible.
But I think HLE and Team Liquid showed LEC. I want to assume coaches in LEC are competent, right? Like, because I know a lot of these guys, and the ones I know, I don't know every coach in LEC, but the ones that I've spoken to, I know are competent. But literally, HLE and TL has shown you the blueprint for how to attack Yike and how to attack Keiko. And you know, let's see if the LEC teams have learned the lesson. Because there's very specific things you can do, and the person you need to attack is Yike. But you know, let's see if they learn the lesson, and let's see if Yike's able to adapt. Because to me, that's where the narrative thing is on Keiko right now. Because like I said, Vladdy and Kalist showed that they've got it, right? And yeah, let's see going into this.
By the way, is a beast. Holy moly.
By the way, let's do one last mini point. Since, as you pointed out, I forgot about that actually, Freeze. Since actually both of you have worked with Jojopyun. By the way, I could have done the exact same point about Jojo. Like, you could say after the other way around, though. I would say this is the split he has to prove he's good in Europe. Like, a lot of people, I'm sorry, when he was coming to Europe, I saw a lot of hype, actually. People were genuinely hyped. They really did think, like, this is like if Doublelift had come back in the day. Like, let's see how good they are. Like, obviously, that guy Smurfs in NA, he looks super sick. He was the MVP. The problem now is, after the first split, it's going to make people think, I mean, now it doesn't even exist anymore, the LCS, but it's going to make people think LCS is the Mickey Mouse League because that guy looked super sick over there, and then over here, it's like, was he even like a top half mid laner at the end of the split? You know what I mean? Like, it got really bad.